Let's cast our mind back to the La Trobe University days. Can you give us some impressions of your time at La Trobe and what it was like to work there?
I think very fondly back of that content marketing team. I think the structure was great and the content cycle that we had was really great. And I think, we started within months of each other, which was really good because we were both new and working out new ways to do things, which was really good. The lovely thing about La Trobe as well is that by the time I'd left, I'd actually done every job in the team,
Yeah.
which was, a bit weird. But yeah, so I did start out at doing the long form because I had been doing SEO work kind of freelance. And then I'd done some community management work with Telstra. And it was kind of like a bit of an in-between because, of course, I came from an academic background and I thought the idea of being able to actually interview academics and talk about kind of subject matter that was actually interesting to me, but then be able to kind of translate it into a digital world was, I was like, well, this is going to be my dream job. So, and I did really love it.
Felicity, something else we have in common is that we both did PhDs in cultural studies. It pretty much still forms the basis for how I approach all of my work today. I was wondering if your PhD has influenced your career.
So I did, it was almost 10 years. I didn't actually end up submitting my PhD. I abandoned ship, which I don't have any regrets over, but I looked at political music. I looked at music in particular. Music was really my focus, but it was really like the foundation of my academic work was audience reception theory and how people brought themselves to text and how that made them negotiate with text. And in particular for my thesis, it was like how people thought of themselves as a political being because they were a Billy Bragg fan or because they really liked Live Aid and donated to Live Aid, and therefore that meant that they were an activist, and what that actually meant in terms of how they dealt with popular culture and also their political beliefs. And that sounds like it's quite far from social media, but it actually really genuinely isn't. One of the best ways for you to make good social media is to be really, really audience-led, and not audience-led as in how can I make the audience do what I want? Audience-led as in what is the audience likely to do with what I've given them? And I think that really, really, really informs the way that I still do social media. 13 years on, I still do social media with that in my mind. I think it was helpful not to come from a marketing background.
Can you cast your mind back and tell us what it was like to create social media back then?
Obviously, organic social media still worked then, which is good. I still think organic social media works, to preface my endpoint. But you could get reach quite easily with all sorts of tactics like being really in tune to when your audience was online, trying to, leverage shares really early in the posting. There are even hashtags actually had an impact on what you were doing and what you were posting and the performance of what you were posting. And really none of that works anymore, which is sad, but literally the only thing that works anymore that still worked then, the thing that is still there is consistency. That hasn't gone away. You still have to post really regularly. You still have to be a content machine as a social media team. But all of those little tactics that we had don't really wash anymore. And I think the algorithm is a savage beast, and also more people are posting more regularly.
So as a social media manager, how do you deal with this maelstrom of change? How do you write this algorithmic beast?
Personally, I think there's two things. It's managing people's expectations. I think that I thought that everything would have changed when I had been this long in the game, that I thought that there'd be more understanding of what social media can achieve and what its purpose is, and there actually isn't. And that is something that I continually have to work on people's understanding of what they the reasons why they should have organic social media and what organic social media can do for them and what it can't, and what kind of messaging is going to work and what isn't. That's my job, and it's the job of every social media manager to try to educate the people in their organisation of all of those things in a gentle and non-confrontationary manner. Confrontation, I should say. But so that's A. But I think B, and I've seen this over and over again, I've got the proof of some of the most successful content that I probably will ever post in my life, is that if you are of use to your audience, there's a reason why someone would follow you and there's a reason why someone would continue to engage with you, then you will be okay. You might not go gangbusters, you might not get millions and millions of reach, but if you can actually be of use in some description and have a purpose, show the purpose to the audience, I should say, then you will get okay reach, you will get continuing follower growth, you will get continuing engagements. And of use is not talking about your own brand. Of use is talking about the audience.
What are some core principles that have endured throughout your career in social media management?
Don't make it too long. Don't make it too hard to watch. Remember that you are competing in the newsfeed with people's wedding photos and photos of their friend's new kid and photos of really cute animal memes, and there's no reason for people to stop their scroll unless you give them a reason. So I think one of the really core principles is don't be vain about your organization's purpose. But yeah, and not making it hard to read is massive. Particularly as I've moved further in, I do work with not-for-profits and organisations that have quite a complex mission. Trying to do that in 25 words or less, or even in a fun, positive way, can be really difficult. So there has to be, nuances in how you approach that. No content is a silver bullet. I think people think that if we'll make a video, and it's people aren't going to watch it. People watch videos for about 10 to 15 seconds. I'll do this and then that will fix it. And also just being patient, being incredibly patient, I think.
You can see this imperative across pretty much all social media to create more and more video, because that's what the algorithm feeds on, and apparently that's what we must do to get our stuff to a wider audience. You could see this play out in an interesting way on LinkedIn recently. So I was wondering, Felicity, if you could comment on this trend in general and also as it applies to LinkedIn.
I saw people reacting really poorly to that on LinkedIn, and I completely understand. I feel a little bit like there's quite a big disconnect between Australian identity and what we want to do with social media, and American identity and what they want to do with social media. And, I constantly trying to follow more Australian people, so I see more Australian content on my newsfeed. We're not very extroverted people. And tall poppy syndrome does have an impact, and I don't know many people who naturally grab their phone and narrate to their phone. I just don't think that works with many people. And you shouldn't have to be an extrovert for your social media to work. So I hope that trend doesn't take over LinkedIn. Having said that, I love that on TikTok, and I love that on Instagram to a lesser degree. There's more of a push of the DIY-ness, and more than DIY-ness, simplicity. That you can do a beautiful photo or a video of you making a cup of coffee and narrate it with your thoughts about XYZ. that it doesn't, you don't have to have a hero video every single freaking time that you post, and it doesn't have to be hard to edit, and it doesn't have to be 3 minutes long. I like that. I think that that's why video has taken off. It's because we've allowed people to be more natural with what they will actually show you, and it's not even behind the scenes. It's like that's actually the point of the photo, or it's the point of the video. I think it works on those platforms, and I think that it's actually aesthetically pleasing. I just don't think I really don't want LinkedIn to look like that. I don't want to see videos of sunsets on LinkedIn.
I feel like LinkedIn's in this strange sort of limbo land at the moment, guru content, lifestyle content, what have you. Can you tell us a bit about how you use LinkedIn and what you get out of the platform?
I do genuinely actually quite enjoy spending time on LinkedIn. And I think the reason why is because for social media managers, obviously it's the professional network on social media. It's elite for finding out advice, for getting advice, for being able to reach out to people who are genuinely top of their game, running incredible accounts, and you can connect with them and see what they're doing. That's a genuinely a very valuable thing when you're in an industry where trends can change month to month. Platforms can change overnight and you can lose a button. It's as simple as that, so those things actually really help for LinkedIn. I do find that there can be a lot of repetitiveness, a lot of poor use of AI, and a lot of people big noting themselves when you don't really think there's a whole lot of substance there. And there's a part of me that makes me, because of those things are on LinkedIn, there's a part of me that does want to go, well, I'm not going to post on LinkedIn. But the thing is that that's not solving the problem. And the more I post and the more I say, I found this is what I think about XYZ, the more I find myself connected with other people who are also, at my level and sharing similar advice and sharing, their ideas about particular things. And I think that's incredibly important. Mm-hmm. And I find I get a lot more attraction on LinkedIn than I would say if I had an Instagram account.
Now, I was a little reluctant to broach this next topic as I know it wasn't the happiest time of your career. And of course, we're talking about when you were social media manager at the Department of Health and Human Services in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia during the COVID-19 pandemic. Could you take us through what it was like to lead the department's social media team during this crazy period?
So I worked for Department of Health and Human Services, so obviously the services and the health, and then later on it became the Department of Health. But yeah, so when the pandemic started, we had literally 2 experienced people in the team, 2 people. It expanded to 4 people, but the other 2 people hadn't had as much experience in social media. And we, I remember getting the first call that was like, and the thing is that at the health department, getting calls saying that a pandemic might be happening wasn't actually as rare as people on the outside would think. Getting public health people would say, we need to do a post about X or Y or blah. There were a lot of things in the time that I was there that could have blown up into something that never did. And this was just the thing that did. And it was I think we probably all forget now how clueless we all were when COVID actually started, when it started to come to be. We've been telling people during flu season to sneeze into their elbows and stay home if they were sick for, decades. But it was new that it was actually impacting their lives in the way that it was.
So many Melburnians remember that tweet, the daily tweet of the case numbers that your team produced, it's sort of seared into our cultural memory. Can you take us through how this this daily tweet came about and the process behind putting it all together?
So look, some of it's a bit of a blur, but I'll take you through. I'll take you behind the scenes of what it was like to do that tweet, because it was genuinely quite, medically diagnosed traumatic. But it was, that whole tweet was created in response to the fact that we knew the public were so desperate for factual data and information. It gave them something to hold on to, and we were in the business of trying to make people feel calmer and feel safer in an incredibly uncertain world. So it really was genuinely a creation of us wanting to comfort the public. And sometimes that was successful and sometimes it wasn't. So we worked with the epidemiology team, and it wasn't just me, it was the whole digital team, wasn't just the social team. They also had data dashboards that they were working with, and they were working with, epidemiologists who are absolute top of their game. I happened to be very, very close friends with one of the head epidemiologists. I already was, so that helped. But basically, the epidemiologist would create a report which was called the situation report, that would get data from all around Victoria. Some of this is like literally faxed data. Like it was in a really, I can't underestimate how complex it was for them to put this report together. And then that report was delivered to us in a protected kind of delivery system. We had 10 minutes to get that tweet up. So we would be sitting there. Our shift started at 7 a.m. and it could come from any time from about 7 to about 10 a.m. You didn't really know when it was going to be finalised and sent. So one of my team members would be sitting there in front of Canva, in front of our already set up graphic. I would be sitting there looking at the numbers and really quickly, and I'd have basic copy, but you never knew if the news was going to be really bad, or just ordinary. It was never good. And then I would write that, and then we would send it to an approval group, which were quite high execs. They would tick it off and then we would post it. And then for around it would take minimum of an hour, depending. There would be a absolute deluge of abuse to our team on Twitter. We tried to share the load a bit, although I pretty much read it every time I was on shift, because we did end up moving to shift work, because we did actually cover 24/7 for a little while, and then we moved to 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. It was a pretty horrific experience, because in the end, what people were looking for were the numbers so that they could come out of lockdown earlier. But for us, we were reporting on people dying. We were literally sitting there with a Canva tile that said deaths. That's not really why I got into social media. In the end, I am a humanities student with no medical training whatsoever. And, I deeply felt that every single time that it's those people are families. I can see the tile in my head. I can see the number in my head. It was an incredibly difficult thing. And people weren't very nice about it. Even people who were trying not to, I think people were trying to be sassy about it or funny about it. It was not a nice environment to be posting in. It really did feel like you were kind of, there was a feeling of it as if you were walking in the streets and people were pelting vegetables at you. It was a very, very, it's very difficult content to share. There's no good way to say, unfortunately, this many people have lost their lives overnight. And it was really political, even though we were the department. We weren't a political party. We weren't sharing it from Dan Andrews' account. We had nothing to do with Dan Andrews' team. But it was a very political situation and a very politicised conversation, and that wasn't easy. and there was a lot of racism. There was a lot of bigotry, and it was also the highest reach and impressions and engagement that I'll ever have in my entire life. So
it's not the way you want to achieve that, though, is it?
No, it's really not. And it changed my perception of those things as like something you can go woohoo about. I mean, the highest reach we got, which I think was like almost over 4 million, which is like nearly all of Victoria, right? Was when we had Donut Day, when it was 000, which was honestly one of the best days of my life. Honestly, it was one of the best days of my life, and I'll remember it always.
Yeah, I remember that day well.
Yeah, there were a lot of tears in our department. I think people probably think that there was the department, like from the outside looking in, that the department were quite clinical about it. And quite stoic, but in the end, we were all comms people. We weren't doctors. You know, having said that, I mean, even the beautiful epidemiologists who I still absolutely adore, they weren't very clinical about it either. Even though that is there, you know, it was a very emotional time.
In Australia, the Albanese government is introducing legislation to ban the use of social media by Australian teenagers. So, Felicity, I wanted to ask you, do social media bans have a place?
I am so torn about social media bans. I have seen the worst of the worst. I've seen people say some things that like stick in my memory because they are so awful. And I'm an adult woman. And I think about young kids seeing that, and also the relentless nature of the feeling of being observed. And I think about those things in terms of a young child's psyche and how that would impact them. And so therefore I can understand the impulse to want to ban social media entirely. And if I was a parent, rather than a step parent of a 26-year-old who can do whatever he likes, I think that would probably make me be in favour of them. But I also think they won't work. I always remember a friend of mine's little boy was at school. They were given an iPad to do this particular maths exercise, and the little boy who he was partnering up with somehow broke out of that, went to YouTube and watched the preview of it on YouTube.
Wow.
And they were like 6.
Yeah.
And that was like, that gave him nightmares for weeks, right? And the teacher was like, how did he do that? I'm not really, I mean, I used to sneak into R-rated films with my student card. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think that they will really, I don't think it takes a digital native very much to break these bans anyway.
Yeah.
I also worry that they haven't consulted the people that they should consult. It's really feeling like a video game or like a moral panic in a Reagan area about, like, you know, demon worshippers. Like, it's not feeling constructive. And there are people who I know, I don't personally know them, but I mean, like, I'm connected to them on LinkedIn and stuff. And I know for a fact that they weren't consulted. And I'm like, if you're not consulting Tamar Lever and all of these people who are working in doing some amazing work in the sector, then who did you talk to?
All right, now onto the really juicy topics. What do you think is the function of a good meme?
That's such a good question. I think the function of a meme is, I think that one of the really charming and amazing things about social media is the sense of humor of it, is how it can genuinely be something that people are holding in their hands and laughing, you know. And I think that we're entering into a really interesting time in terms of how organisations use memes. On TikTok, you see far more that you're far more likely to see an organisation make like a funny comment on an already trending sound, rather than try to do it themselves, which is what they used to do. I have a couple of social media manager friends who have based their whole social strategies on memes, and it's totally worked for them. I used to know someone who did the social media managing for Nando's, and that was like so central to what she did. That's not really the social media manager that I am, but I think they really have their place. What I think is amazing though about TikTok is you can have particular memes on your For You page that you think are viral, and then you can speak to someone else who regularly uses TikTok and they've never seen it.
Yeah, right.
So it's diffuse.
Yes. Yeah, very automatic.
Yeah, like it used to be. I mean, there's stuff that gets through, obviously. Like and like a lot of that is maybe backed up by money, you know, like the Brat stuff that came out, that Kamala's HQ kind of jumped on. Obviously, that was like quite well funded, but also I think there was an element of virality to it. And then there's like Moo Deng. That was pretty collective. I think everyone would know who Moo Deng was. And we won't know in 3 years, you know, we'll forget. Yeah. But there's a meme that I follow on TikTok that I really, really enjoy, and it will repeat just in my head. And it's this guy who speaks in this really, really strange way, and he has this little catchphrase like where he goes coffee, coffee, dingle, dingle, and they've made it into like a dance and a viral song. But I mentioned it to my younger co-workers the other day, and they had no idea what I was talking about.